Okay, well, welcome everyone. And I am Liz Cornish, and the program that we are doing is called Assisted Living and Memory Care Options. And today we're going to be talking about the options that we have available for assisted living and memory care for anybody that is looking for a little extra care. But first, a little bit about who I am. My name is Liz Cornish, and I am a physical therapist by profession. I have over 35 years of experience as a physical therapist working in home care, assisted living, and memory care communities throughout Connecticut. I am a certified dementia care specialist as well as a certified dementia care practitioner and the owner of New Season in Life. We are senior care consultants and assisted living advisors. So just at first, a couple of statistics for fun. There's approximately 47 million seniors that live in the United States. They're expecting that to double by 2060. The average American life expectancy is about 78 years. And many seniors never, ever retire. We have a 2016 Pew Research poll that puts 20% of seniors still working full time. And a lot of that is because they want to, but some of that is because they need to. There are over 30,000 assisted living communities in the United States, and that number is probably a little bit outdated. There's probably significantly more than that currently. In Connecticut, there's over 140 different communities throughout Connecticut. And according to the CDC, if you reach the age of 80, you're likely to live another 10 years. So that's just a little fun fact for you. We're going to start out by just giving some definitions. I find that many times people don't understand truly what senior living is. And first, I'll start with the umbrella of senior living communities. And those include independent living, assisted living, and memory care living communities. So let's start with independent living communities. These are communities that are designed especially for seniors who are still active, independent, driving, doing their own thing, but they don't want to worry about shopping, cooking, cleaning, or any of those other household chores that we have to do when we own a home or even if we're renting. This allows them to live in a community that provides 3 meals a day, that does their laundry, that does their cooking, that does their cleaning, so they can enjoy life without any of the chores. However, with solely independent living, it does not have personal care services. So there's not anybody there that can help with medication or showers or anything like that. Then we move to assisted living. So assisted living is for people that can get around independently, but may need some assistance. They may need medication queuing, or they may need assistance with showering. And it may not be actual physical assistance, but they just may not feel safe getting in and out of the shower. So they may need someone just to kind of stand by. They may need help with dressing or other activities of daily living. And so assisted living has the same amenities and the same services as independent living. They offer 3 meals a day. They do housekeeping. They change your bed sheets, those types of amenities. But they also offer assistance with personal care. Now, both independent living and assisted living can reside under the same roof. So in many communities, you can be independent in one apartment. And then if you need assistance in the future, they just add that as a level of care. And now it's assisted living. Okay, but they can be under the same roof. Also, we have residential care or subsidized assisted living. And these are similar to independent or assisted living communities. They're typically smaller apartment buildings or smaller home-like settings. They typically will not have nursing available as often. They may have a nurse that comes in a couple times a week to do set up the medications, but then the caregivers will be the ones that give out medications. They typically don't have all the bells and whistles that some of the nicer assisted living or independent living communities do. They typically won't have transportation, but they're often at a significantly less cost, and Title 19 will cover some residential care homes. The issue with residential care homes or subsidized assisted living is that there's often a very long wait list. So right now in Connecticut, the majority of the subsidized assisted living communities that I know of have about a year wait list. So you need to plan ahead if that's something that you're looking into. So next on our list are called memory care assisted living. So many times in senior living communities, that big umbrella, they may have independent, assisted, and a memory care. They call them memory care neighborhoods within their building. And they are a subsection of that senior living community, or there can be a memory care assisted living that all they do is memory care. Either way, those memory care areas are a secured building, so they don't allow, they have people that they can't go in and out. They're usually a coded entry so that the residents can't get in and out by themselves. Many times they have courtyards or walking areas that are secured as well, fenced in, but that residents can go in and out of the community when the weather is good and be able to get outside independently on their own. The staff has training specifically for memory care issues. Their activities are programmed especially for those residents. So they may have a variety of different levels of activities because the residents may be at different levels in their journey of dementia or Alzheimer's. So they're specifically trained to deal with people who have some sort of dementia or Alzheimer's. And then we have nursing homes. And many times what I find is that people don't understand the difference between a nursing home and a senior living community. And a senior living community in Connecticut is a social model, and therefore is all private pay. Whereas a nursing home is a medical model, and your insurance may cover that for short-term rehab, or Title 19 will kick in and cover that if someone needs long-term care and they need that higher level of care. So in a nursing home, you typically have 2 or more people in a room. You're sharing the room, you're sharing the bathroom. Nursing is there 24/7. Doctors are in and out all the time. There's very limited activities and there's very limited amenities. There's not a, while you're getting 3 meals a day, there's not a dining room and the choices are limited. You're not getting kind of restaurant quality food in a nursing home. Okay, and then the last but not least is a continuum of care. And a continuum of care is usually a complex of multiple buildings that range from independent to assisted. Sometimes they have a memory care, and then they typically will have a nursing home all on that campus. They tend to have large buy-ins, and you really need to go there when you're pretty independent. They do a medical screening to make sure that you don't have any underlying disease process that's going to significantly limit your ability to live independently for a number of years, because they want you to come in at that independent level and not use as many of their services until you actually need them. So these are great communities if you're completely and totally independent and want just that freedom to be able to come and go and kind of have resort style living. They do come at a large cost though. They typically have an upfront hundreds of thousands of dollars initial upfront cost and then a monthly rent, where a typical assisted living, independent living community is a month-to-month rent and doesn't have that large upfront cost initially. So this is a list of communities that are just surrounding kind of in Greater Hartford. I didn't actually even include Glastonbury. There are a couple, 2 other communities in Glastonbury, but I just put this slide in just so you have an understanding of how many different communities there are just within a small geographic area. And they are all, every single one of them is a little bit different. They're a little bit different in their care. They're a little bit different in their kind of their personality, their vibe, how they feel. Some are smaller and more family-like. Some are larger and more business-like or professional. Some are more modern. Some are homier. So they're all different. They provide different levels of care as well, because they are a social model. Not all of them provide the same level of medical care. So again, there's over 140 communities within Connecticut alone. So I think I already answered the question, are all assisted living, senior living communities the same? And the answer is absolutely not. I will talk just a little bit about kind of the significant differences in the categories. So the first one is dining. For me, that's always the first one. How's the food? Food's a big, important decision, because if you are looking at a senior living community and you don't like the food, then you're kind of stuck. That's one of the reasons a lot of people go to a senior living community, is because they don't want to cook anymore. They can't cook anymore. So there are a variety of different types of dining within the communities. Some have restaurant style dining. So you have, a full menu with 2 or 3 specials at each meal, and a kind of a standard menu. It may change seasonally, and you can pick anything off of that. So you can get anything from a hot dog to their filet mignon to their special, which may be, 2 or 3 different types. Usually they do a meat and then a fish as a special, and it can be very gourmet. Some of them have a set menu, so there are no specials, but they have a set menu, and you can get anything from, again, a sandwich to pasta to a steak at different meals. Many say that they are all day dining. However, when a community says that they're all day dining, I always ask, can you get everything at all day dining? Because you may be able to go at 2 o'clock and get a sandwich, but you may not be able to have their special. And so that's one of the questions that I always encourage people to ask when they're looking at a community, is if they say they have all day dining, can you get everything all day? Or will they just bring out a cold sandwich at, 7:30 at night, rather than their hot specials that they have? And then what are the meal times? So, many times they're specific meal times. So their breakfast may be from 7 to 9, which is great. Most people will be able to accommodate that. But if you are a late riser and don't get up till 10, you need to know what time the dining is, because you may miss breakfast every day. And that may be okay for you, but it may not be. So you need to understand what their dining situation is, the hours, what their menu is set up at, how their menu is set up. And I always encourage people when they're touring a community to tour and get a meal. And you can, when you set up a tour, you can ask them, hey, I'd like to set up a tour, and you know what, I'd like to get a meal during that tour. So they will absolutely accommodate that. And you may not be able to eat in their restaurant with their residents, but they all have private dining rooms that they can bring you the meal while you're talking with their salesperson. So I encourage people, especially if you're a foodie like me, to definitely always ask to try the food, because if you don't like it, you want to make sure that you're liking the food with the community that you're moving to. Secondly is transportation. Most communities have transportation. They have a car or a van or multiple cars and vans where they can transport you to different doctor's appointments, to shopping, to the drugstore, to the mall. But you need to find out what their limitations are. Many will transport for 10 or 15 miles. And then they might be able to transport further if you have a doctor's appointment out further, but they may have a charge for that. Some only have a car. And so if you have a wheelchair, that might be problematic. Some have the vans that have the wheelchair lifts and can accommodate that. So finding out what type of transportation, what their limits are as far as mileage goes, to understand where your doctors are, where you travel to mostly, if you need that transportation, to have that available. Amenities. Every community will have a list of activities that they provide. They'll have everything from, your standard bingo and cards and crafts to golf simulators and pools and exercise programs, Wii bowling tournaments and bocce tournaments and all kinds of different things. So depending on what you enjoy doing, you want to take a look at the activities that they offer and the amenities that they offer. Do they have a full gym if you like to work out? Or do they offer exercise classes if you enjoy exercising with other people? And what type of exercises? Are they only chair exercises? If you're pretty active, do they offer balance exercise classes or Tai Chi or any of the, outside of just standard exercise classes? If you're a swimmer, do they have a pool? There's not many, but there are some that do have pools. If you're an avid swimmer, that might be something that, is an absolute must-have for you. Find out what activities they have, and what activities you like. And then also I encourage people to tour during activity time. So most activities happen 10:30, and then 1:30, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. They kind of have a morning sessions and then afternoon sessions. Find out when they are, and I would encourage you to tour during one of those times to see what the participation is like. All of the communities offer a list of activities. Some have very good participation, some do not. They still have to offer the activities, but if you're somebody that's very social and likes those activities and wants to be involved, and you move to a community that offers them, but nobody really participates, then that's not going to be a great fit for you. So you want to know the level of participation in those activities that they offer. That's a huge thing. And then the culture. Each community has its own personality, its own charm, again, its own vibe. Some are very family and home-like, and the staff know every single resident. They know the residents' children, they know the grandchildren, they know the dog's name, they know the cat's name, right? And some know, and some don't. Some really don't know the residents very well. There's smaller communities that are 60 beds. There's larger communities that are over 100, 120, 140 bed communities. And you need to, again, it has to fit your personality. For me, I'm a very social person, so I would want something that's a very family feeling. Everybody knows me, the waiters know me. But some people just are they don't want that. And so you wouldn't want to go to a community that has that warm feeling where everybody's going, hey, let's go to this activity. Hey, John, are you coming with me to here? And you having to say, no, I'm not. I'm just standing alone. Whereas if you're a very social person and you get into a community that is kind of more professional or more impersonal, you're not going to have that social engagement that you're looking for. So understand it's, the community has a culture, and how that culture fits with your personality and how you want to age and how you want to live your life. Now, service. This is another big one. The level of care. So in senior communities, they have a base rate. So that would be considered if you moved in and all you were moving in, you were getting the apartment with no care. That's their base apartment rate. And most of the communities, there's an additional care package if you need care. So if you need help with medications, that's an addition. If you need help with showers or dressing or toileting, or if you need an escort to different activities or to the dining room, those are additional levels of care. Most of the communities have packages, so they kind of bundle common needs together. Although some communities have what they do is an a la carte. So if you need medications, that would be something. And if you needed showering, that would be an a la carte. And if you needed dressing, that would be an a la carte. So you need to understand their levels of service, because if you go in as independent, that's great. They may have a low base rate, but if something happens and you need more care, a lot of those a la carte communities, that care adds up really quickly if you need more and more service. And that's especially true in memory care. In memory care, there are communities that are all inclusive, so that all of your care is included, but some of them, it's an a la carte system, so that as people progress in their disease process, they need more help. And they will provide that help and allow people to age in place till their last days, but with an a la carte type of cost structure, that can get very expensive. So you need to know what's included and also what they will do. I give the example, I had, as a physical therapist, I had two gentlemen who were in two different communities. Both were living independently in those communities until they had, both had the exact same diagnosis, and they both ended up with Foley catheters that were going to be short term, but long enough. So they were both going to be in for a few months. Both of them had arthritic hands and they couldn't manage the Foley catheter. So in one community, they said, absolutely, there's no problem. We'll add a level of care. We'll add a care package for the months that you need us, and we can take care of maintaining that Foley catheter. So it cost him a little bit of money for those 2 months that he needed care. The other community said, no, we don't do that. We don't do that at all. And so he ended up having to hire a 24-hour caregiver. So at $300 a day, in addition to what he was paying for the rent. Obviously, that was really unsustainable financially, and he ended up having to move out. because he was going to be with this situation for a few months and he couldn't afford that. So you need to understand the level of care, what they will provide and what they won't provide, as far as, will they do some medical care if needed, or will they not? Will they say, no, those medical, we don't do at all. We're totally a social model. They have that flexibility, but each community has a different policy on how they handle those things. Okay. So the next thing is talking about, when is assisted living required, or when is it time to start looking at that? So I look always first at safety and supervision. So have you noticed that somebody being forgetful? Are they leaving the stove on? Have they burned meals? Have they had increased forgetfulness? You let them know, hey, you got a doctor's appointment, and they're constantly, hey, when is that doctor's appointment? When is that doctor's appointment? When is that doctor's appointment? And it's a span of 24 hours, and you've told them 7 times the doctor's appointment is tomorrow. Those are those forgetfulness, safety issues. Have they had falls? Have they fallen down and not told you? So those are the things that we look for, just that safety issue. Access to care is another one. Is it harder for them to get to the doctor's office? Are they missing doctor's appointments? Are they canceling, not because there's snow or ice on the ground, but because it might be drizzling and they don't want to go? It's, they're making excuses. Many times I find seniors are canceling their doctor's appointments if the weather's not great, even if it's just drizzling. When you dig down, it's more because it's hard for them to get there. And so are they canceling those appointments? If they're canceling them, we may be missing some of the medical issues that need to be taken care of. Managing medications. This is a big one. Are they missing medication doses? Are they skipping medication? Have you found medication on the floor? So many times, my seniors will put their medications into their pill boxes, and that's great, and they do that absolutely perfectly. But then taking that pill box and turning it over to empty out the pills into their hands, pills fall, and they don't realize it. So I go in, I have gone in as a physical therapist, and I'll find 3 or 4 different pills on the floor, and they didn't even know it. So what medications did they miss? What medication, how many did they miss? So making sure that they're taking medications appropriately on time, that they are not skipping medication dosages, and that things aren't falling on the floor. So if you notice that any of the medication issues, it may be time to have start having that conversation. Changes in hygiene are also a big thing. They've stopped showering, or somebody that showered every single day is now showering once a week. And they'll say to you, oh, I don't do anything. I don't need to shower. Usually when you dig down, if there's a change in that behavior, when you dig down, they'll admit to, maybe not to family, but they'll admit to an outside person that, you know what, yeah, I just don't feel safe getting in and out of the shower. So I'm only going to do it once a week. So, is that something that we can address with maybe putting in some grab bars or a shower chair? Or is it something that it needs a little bit more care and moving into a senior living community? I use also the example of somebody who's usually dressed to the nines, right? They're always the gentleman who's always in a button-down shirt and tie and belt, and they're always dressed up, and they're all of a sudden they're starting to wear baggy t-shirts or sweatshirts and sweats, and they say, oh, I'm just more comfortable. I always wonder, like, okay, if you got to 80 wearing a button-down shirt and pants and belt every single day of your life, why is that sudden change happening? And typically, again, when you drill down a little bit, the buttons are hard. I can't get the belt done. I can't get the buttons on my pants done. Women can't get the zipper done on a dress, or they can't get stockings on anymore. And so if they're having a change in their personal hygiene or in how they're dressing, that may be, there may be needing more assistance. And again, another thing is the house. Is the house always been absolutely spotless? And now there's a lot of dust bunnies and food that's dropped on the floor that hasn't been cleaned up. Any significant change in either personal hygiene or how the house has been kept may signal that they're struggling a little bit, and they may not admit that to family. But when someone kind of from the outside, a therapist or social worker, or somebody comes in and drills down and asks those right questions, they usually admit that. Changes in mood and behaviors. One of the big things for seniors is eating. And I can't tell you how many seniors will tell me when I went in as a therapist and I say, okay, let's talk about nutrition a little bit. And I go in now and I say, let's talk about nutrition. What are you having? Well, I have an English muffin for breakfast, and then I eat lunch, and then I don't really eat dinner at all because I don't do anything. So I don't need to eat 3 meals a day. Well, I will tell you, whether you're 10, 30, or 80, you need to eat at least 3 meals a day. You have to eat that much to get that nutrition that you need to sustain muscle and to sustain your energy and your cognitive function. So when someone has changed their eating habits, they're not eating. Typically, they've dropped that last meal of the day, that dinner meal. Again, digging down and asking those questions. Many times it's because it's too hard. They're tired at the end of the day. Or they're only cooking. I'm only cooking for one, so I'm not going to make the meal. So they're not getting the proper nutrition. And I use the story of my own mother, who is a diabetic and was not managing her diabetes well, because she wasn't cooking. She lives alone and she just wasn't cooking for one. Cooking was never something she loved doing. And her blood sugar was out of control. And so I came in and started taking over the cooking, and all of a sudden her blood sugar is better. All of a sudden her numbers are better, her checkups are better, her eyes are better, her kidney function hasn't changed. And so you can make huge differences with the nutrition. So people that aren't getting the proper nutrition may need some help with that, whether that's somebody coming in and cooking, or whether that's taking a look at making the move to a senior living community. And then basic connections and socialization. One thing that I'm going to tell you is that what we've learned over COVID the last 2 years is socialization is incredibly important. Social isolation through COVID, when we had all those lockdowns, we saw a 53% increase in dementia symptoms. So people that were thriving and living alone and doing their thing and getting out, and all of a sudden they were shut down and family didn't visit, and they weren't able to get out. They started to exhibit symptoms of dementia. And so we have seen just an incredible spike in dementia and dementia-like symptoms from social isolation and the lack of socialization. So if you have somebody that is isolated, alone, can't get out anymore for whatever reason, whether it's COVID or they can't drive anymore, or they're just not meeting with the people they used to meet with, that social isolation in and of itself is a reason to look at assisted living, senior living, where they can get some socialization with peers of their own age and with other people, because you have waiter staff and caregivers and everybody in the community that contributes to that socialization of that senior. So how do we start that conversation? I always tell people to plant the seed and try to plant that seed early. Don't wait for a crisis. We don't want to say, hey, we're moving you today. We want to talk about how and when, and say, hey, I know you want to stay home, because most seniors want to stay home. We know you want to stay home, and we want to honor those wishes. But let's be realistic, and let's set up some expectations. And when do you think it would be appropriate to move to assisted living? Can we say, when we see X changes, then we can start looking at it. And I always encourage people to tour early, look at assisted living, because many seniors, especially those who are older, in their 80s or late 80s or 90s, don't understand the difference between, they hear senior living and they think nursing home. And when I think senior living, I think five-star resort living. And so I go into these communities, I'm like, when and where can I sign up? Because this is great. People waiting on me. This is wonderful. So maybe go. Say, hey, let's just go. We're just going to go. We're going to get a meal. Hey, we're going to get a free meal. It's like going out to a restaurant. We're going on a tour. We're not making any decisions. We're not signing you up. There's no obligation. But let's take a look. Let's see what's out there. So plant the seed, start talking about it early. Don't wait for a crisis. Of course, if you have a crisis, we are there for you, and we can manage you through that crisis, but it's never the optimal time to make any decisions. Ask the questions. How do you want to live? What are your goals? What are those must-haves for you? And then what are the wants and desires? And I always tell people to proceed with gentleness and care. We don't want to, never, ever do we ever want to take away somebody's control and authority over their own life. We want to help. Family members want to help. So we want to proceed with gentleness and care. And then many times, families are not the right people to have those conversations. And we need to seek outside professional guidance. And I use again the story of my father. He had muscular dystrophy, and as his disease progressed, I would offer suggestions. I'm a physical therapist. Again, I would say, hey, let's do this. Let's try this exercise. Hey, Dad, let's try this nutrition wise. And nothing. They went in, it went right out the other side, and he didn't take anything that I said, and he didn't implement anything. And so it got to the point I said, we're going to bring in a therapist. So I brought in a physical therapist, a colleague of mine, and who worked with my father. And my father came back to me and said, how come you never told me X, Y, and Z? And I just thought, oh my goodness, how many times have I told you that? So it may be that you need to bring in that outside professional, a senior care consultant, an assisted living advisor, to help you with planting that seed, discussing the possibilities, and understanding what options are available for you. So we talked about that senior living communities are not covered by any insurance. Medicare does not cover them, with the exception of residential care or subsidized communities. Title 19 does not cover them. They are privately paid for. The people always say, well, how much do they cost? That ranges from right around $2,800 a month, and it can go well over $10,000 a month, depending on the community, depending on the type of room you're looking for, depending on the care that you need. So it's a huge range of cost for senior living. And people take a look at that number and say, oh my goodness. But if you actually, what I do when I meet with somebody is I actually go through and look at all your costs. So if you own your home, what are you paying in taxes? Your utilities, usually people are paying for snow removal or yard work, leaf and lawn care, housekeeper, food, all those costs. When you add those up, a lot of times it's not that much of a difference, because all those things are covered in an assisted living or a senior living community. So many times a life insurance policy, if it's a whole life insurance policy, many times you can convert some of that to a benefit that you can use prior to death. So that's something that you would look at with your insurance carrier, your life insurance carrier, if that can be done with a life insurance policy. A long-term care policy. Long-term care insurance is phenomenal if you have it. Many times that can cover your entire stay at assisted living. So I am working with someone right now. It's a husband and wife, and his insurance pays for about $6,000 a month, and her long-term care insurance pays for $5,000 a month. So they are set. It's not going to cost them a cent to move to senior living community. Another thing is that if you own your own home, selling a home can give you the funds to pay for senior living. Many times people will say, well, I'm not quite sure I want to sell the home. They may rent the home for a little while, again, giving them some income to provide for senior living. Reverse mortgage may be the right thing, or a bridge loan. Those are specific programs that benefit some people. They're not right for everybody, but I do have resources that I use if we think that a reverse mortgage or a bridge loan might be the right thing. I have people that I work with. It's not my expertise, but I do have people that I work with that it is their expertise, and they would tell you if it's the right thing for someone to do. A program that's out there called the Veterans Aid and Attendance Program is a very little known program that if you are a veteran and you served at least one day during a wartime, it doesn't have to be overseas. You could have been sitting behind a desk during that wartime. But if you served at least one day during wartime, then you may be eligible for this VA aid and attendance. It's a program that gives money for assisted living care. So it can give the veteran up to $2,400 a month, or the surviving spouse up to about $1,200 a month. There are some eligibility criteria, but it has helped a lot of people to be able to afford assisted living. And only about 5% of the eligible veterans are taking advantage of this program. So they estimate that about 25% of seniors could potentially be eligible for this program, but only about 5% are taking advantage of it. So that's another option. There is also the Connecticut pilot program that some of the communities participate in that can provide care, can provide funding for care within assisted living. Sometimes the Alzheimer's Association for people with memory care have grants available as well. So there's a lot of different assisted living communities, senior living communities. There are huge number of differences within them. I always suggest that people take a look at the community, understand how each community, what their personality is, what their culture is, the levels of care, the food, the cost, because that can be very different. And also, on tours, we talked about dining, but how are the people you meet? Are the people you meet smiling? Are they happy? Do they know each other's names? Do they greet you? Or are they kind of just, hey, Hi, how you doing? Um, those are very important things. So understanding all those questions to consider, um, and the questions to ask. One other tip that I always tell my clients is that when you tour a community, one of the most important people to talk to is not the person that's giving you the tour. They're typically the salesperson. All of the communities have salespeople. Their job is to get you to move into their community. So they typically highlight their strengths, and they don't hide, but they don't bring up their challenges. And I let all my clients know that nowhere is perfect. Home is not perfect at times. You're not going to find the perfect community, but you can find the community that best suits your needs. And with that, you need to ask questions, and not just of the salesperson, but I always try and tell people, get the receptionist alone, talk to the caregivers alone, the housekeeper alone. And typically they'll give you pretty good understanding of how the community is, what the staffing's like, are they happy, how the care is. They usually give you the straight shooting, not party line kind of information. So that's my presentation. Just one last thing is as we talked about earlier, sometimes family isn't the best place to turn to understand, or friends may not be the best place to turn. So New Season in Life, we are senior care consultants. We understand all of the communities. I tell people we have insider trading knowledge of all of the communities, and the healthcare expertise. We can also do home safety evaluations, as well as patient advocacy. And I have a ton of resources. So I have over 200 resource partners that I can reach out to for questions within the entire health sphere that are available to you. So sometimes it may be that you need to reach out to a senior care consultant or assisted living advisor as well. So that's the end of my presentation. If you have any questions or concerns, I'll leave my information is up there. You can reach out to me directly, or if you have any questions, you can put those into the chat, and we can answer them right here.
There was one question in the chat. What are the communities in Glastonbury, and are they independent or assisted or nursing home?
So in Glastonbury, you have the Hearth, which has independent, assisted, and memory care. It is a large community. And then there's Buckingham Heights, which is memory care only. It was formerly a Brookdale. It literally just got bought out by a private owner. So it's now called, it used to be Brookdale Buckingham, and now it's Buckingham Heights. So those are the two communities. Wait, there's another. There are so many communities. Let me just make sure I answer it completely. And I sometimes can't remember whether they're actually in Glastonbury or Rocky Hill, which is why I wanted to check. So as far as subsidized, there's also the Herbert T. Clark House, and they have subsidized assisted living. And then also there is Addison Place, which is also in Glastonbury, and they have independent, assisted, and memory care.
You can also unmute yourself at this point if you have any specific questions for Liz.
No questions?
All right, well, we can, what are the fees for your consultation? That's in the chat.
Oh, sorry. So my service is free to my clients as far as assisted living goes. So for patient advocacy, I do have a charge, but for assisted living, senior living care, discussing the communities that are out there, setting up tours, helping you tour, answering all those questions, that's a free consultation. So I don't charge for that.
Ellen, if you wanted more specific information on fees, just reach out to Liz at her email address or phone number that's listed on the screen.
Absolutely. And there's no obligation either. I'm not high pressure. I really started my business to help seniors and to get the information to them so that you all could make educated decisions on senior living. So if you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to answer questions. I'm here as a resource. There's no strings attached to that.
If there are no more questions, we can wrap up for today. Thank you everyone for coming, and thank you, Liz, for presenting. It was great.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. Thanks, everyone.